Now, the City of Tshwane is set to pursue township customers whose accounts are in arrears as part of its revenue collection program. The city says the township customers throughout the city's 7 region owe them 7.3 billion rand, with Mamelodi and Namalpius customers incurring the highest debt of more than 2.1 billion rand. For more on this, we're joined by City of Tshwane MMC for Finance, Peter Sutton. A very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. You're on a mission, vigorously pursuing defaulters in several categories. Talk to us about this breakdown, because it's not just residents and township dwellers that you're looking at, but other parts of the city's consumers.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the opportunity to join you again this evening. Yes, you're 100% correct. What we are busy with is a campaign to collect the outstanding revenue to the city due, and as part of the liquidity problems we have in the city, we are now in a position where it's not a luxury for us anymore to collect. We really need to ensure that we can continue to execute our mandate as a municipality. And we are aiming to work with the credit control policy and make sure that we implement it fairly across all the areas of the City of Tshwane.
Now, the township residents, I mean, I see that you're going to go with Operation Adima as a way to encourage residents to square up and pay their outstanding amounts. The process is not going to be an easy one, as we've seen in other townships like in Gauteng and Soweto, where residents have remained adamant that they don't have the money. They simply cannot afford it, especially looking at the latest increase, a 30% increase as of the 1st of July. How are you going to manage this?
Thank you. I'm so glad you asked that question. And I think, to be fair, in the City of Tshwane and in most municipalities, we have an entire value system that looks at all categories of people. And we know that people are battling. We know that the economic circumstances are difficult for many people, not only in the townships, but all over in the City of Tshwane. And we have avenues that we can assist people with. We have an affordability assessment committee where people can apply to have a partial or full write-off of arrear debt, obviously subject to certain conditions and requirements. We have the indigent program where people can apply for assistance. We're not oblivion to that. But what we have seen is there's this culture that has come in of non-payment. And what we do want to encourage residents is that they need to engage us. They need to come and speak to us, and they need to explain their situation. We are certainly a municipality that understands where people do battle and they can't afford for the services. We totally understand it. We know what the needs are in many of our areas in Tshwane. But I think in fairness, we also need to say that there are certainly people who are not falling into those categories who can pay. But there's just a culture of non-payment, and that's what we're picking up as well. So in cases where people are really battling and not making ends meet, the encouragement is that they do need to engage us and come and speak to us.
And how much will you need, or perhaps are you aiming to collect?
Well, look, that's a very difficult situation. I think part of our debtors book, some of it is so old, it's so badly impaired. We obviously need to collect as much as we can now, and we'll reassess and look at the impairment. But I think, Mpo, if I can explain maybe that we need to change the culture of payment. So I think it's two ways. Yes, we need to collect outstanding debt as much as we can. We are aiming for this first run to collect about 5 billion of the outstanding 17 billion, and then we'll assess again from there. But it's also about changing the culture of payment and to drive the narrative that people need to understand that for us to provide the services that we need to, the liquidity needs to come from the payment of accounts for that.
Businesses have also accounted for a massive amount of the budget that you're hoping to secure and the targets that you're aiming to meet here. But there have been some transgressors in terms of business tampering with the city's infrastructure. How have you dealt with those?
Well, we're dealing with that very aggressively at the moment, and you're 100% correct. What we have found through our Tshwane Adima campaign, illegal connections, illegal reconnections, where we do disconnect, people illegally reconnect again, tampering of prepaid meters. We obviously deal through the normal channels that we have by imposing fines and what we call RIP actions, where we actually remove the electricity connection to those premises. But we are working, and as we announced in our budget, to implement very soon an amnesty period where we will give people an opportunity who have tampered or are guilty of electricity theft to come forward under certain conditions so we can rectify those situations. And I can just say in the last month or so, a number of people have already approached us asking us to assist them to remove illegal connections. So we're very encouraged with that. But our estimate is that we're losing anything from about 500 million to close to 1 billion with free legal connections every year.
But it's not all bad news, because some strides have been made. You have managed to pay Eskom. How much money has been paid there? And perhaps talking to the manner in which you had to ensure that the monies are indeed paid and that there's a culture of paying for electricity.
Yeah, thank you. You see, the entire government, all spheres of government system is a current system. So when Eskom invoices us, and to answer your question, 800 million, or it was 850 million was our electricity bill in the last month. And this month, we're expecting it to be even higher than that. Eskom gives us 10 days to pay. And on average, we get paid 60 or 90 days. So that's where the cash flow problem comes in. So yeah, it takes a lot out of our liquidity, and June was especially a difficult month for us in the city of Tshwane, as many of our short-term loans and other loan funding, past historical loan funding, had to be paid by year-end, as well as interest on loan funding. So it was quite a big outflow in our liquidity in June. We managed to pay Eskom. We were a few days late. And so we'll see how it goes. We're managing the cash flow now, and it's too early to tell still what will happen at the end of this month. But the situation is very tight in the city of Tshwane at the moment due to the under-collection. And I can maybe just mention that the electricity that we have financed through the debtors book is just over 5 billion. So you can think, if our monthly account to Eskom is 850 million, we sit with 5 billion unpaid electricity charges in that debtors book of ours.
What about alternative sources of energy? I mean, the conversation as we speak about electricity, with the numerous blackouts and load shedding playing a massive role on perhaps the city's economy, because hospitals are also at a disadvantage during this time. What's the plan when it comes to thinking around alternative sources of energy?
Well, I think firstly, we have our entire department, and I have colleagues focusing on that at the moment. In the city of Tshwane, we do have 2 power plants that are not operational at the moment, but I know there are talks and investigations to see if they could be in the near future or in the future be utilized again in other forms to provide additional electricity to us here in Tshwane. We're also exploring other forms to allow renewable energy into our system. Currently, in theory, we do allow that, but I think the benefit to customers, when they do feed back into the grid, or for us to buy back from customers, is not sufficient at the moment. So we have some work there to do. But I think in principle, it's something we are embracing and we're looking for, and I think we all acknowledge that that's the way to go.
And when it comes to perhaps some of the challenges, as we maybe go back and forth here around power, sources of power, and tampering with meters, that also has resulted in some people stealing, cable theft, also a huge factor here in terms of reversing the gains. How much of a loss have you encountered as a city?
Well, look, we know our electricity losses are it's a figure that gets audited by the Auditor General every year. In the City of Tshwane, it's anything between 1 billion and 1.5 billion a year. And how partly that is calculated is the bulk purchases that we do at Eskom. So the 850 million we spoke about earlier, we had to pay Eskom for June. That's a bulk purchase we get from Eskom, that we order from them if you want for by explanation. And then we sell it back to our clients or to our customers, and we recoup it through our invoicing. Now, the difference between that can be anything between 1 billion and 1.5 billion a year in the City of Tshwane. Now, we know there's also various categories of that because, yes, as you say, there are people who steal deliberately or tamper or whichever factor there is, but then there are also informal settlements, as you know, and you alluded to that in some parts, other parts of Gauteng, where there are informal settlements who then also illegally connect into the network. Now, that loss forms part of both those. So we are looking at approaches to deal with both of those and to see how best we can still serve the residents, but obviously account and manage the electricity losses better.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time. Let's leave it there for now. City of Tshwane MMC for Finance, Peter Sutton there.